So let's begin by offering our respects to ISKCON founder Acharya and our preeminent Shiksha Guru, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Prabhupada
Jai.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, so we welcome all of you to our weekly Bhagavad Gita classes. We are very happy to see with us today Auntie Neeta, Divya, Disha Milwani, Durga Prasad, Karuna, Jagriti, Lal and Mehak Milwani, Manju, Raju, Ritu Lalwani. I don't know who is R.O. Then my parents are there. Then we have Shri Radhe Hari Devidasi. And we have Varsha. Okay. So in the previous class, we saw how Krishna has answered, or up till the previous class, we saw how Krishna has answered Arjuna's 4 out of the 6 questions. Do you remember? See, the chapter begins with Arjuna asking, about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, the field, which is Kshetra, the knower of the field, which is Kshetragya, knowledge, Jnana, and object of knowledge, Jnaya. No? So out of that, Krishna has answered the last four. He is yet to answer Prakriti and Purusha. So in today's class, we will see Krishna explaining about these two inquiries of Arjuna. What is Prakriti? What is nature? Or what is material nature? And what is Purusha, the enjoyer? So who do you think is the enjoyer, Purusha? Based on all that we have studied so far.
Krishna himself.
Who?
Krishna himself.
Yes, Krishna himself. No, he is the supreme enjoyer. Are we also enjoyers? Can we enjoy? Can the living entity Jiva enjoy?
No.
No, we are enjoyed, not enjoyer, enjoyed by Krishna.
Okay. So Krishna says that the living entity also is the enjoyer, but we are the Purusha with a small p. No, we are the small enjoyers. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's a Purusha with a capital P, big P. So we can enjoy, but with Krishna. We cannot enjoy independent of Krishna. Okay, so anyway, let's
Shlok 20.
Start 20, right?
Yes.
Who can read today?
I can read, Mataji.
Thank you, Jagrati. So this is the second last section of this chapter. And as we said, Krishna is going to explain Prakriti and Purusha. So he's addressing the first and the second questions of Arjuna. Let's hear the shloka.
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विद्यनादि उभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान्
Translation. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Hare Krishna.
So Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti means material nature. Purusha, Krishna is saying, are the living entities. So what is common between these two? Krishna is first explaining. The common things between material nature and the Jiva, living entities, are that both are beginningless. No, you cannot trace when material nature came into existence or when the Jiva came into existence. Both are beginningless. Now, one may argue, but material nature came into existence only when Lord Mahavishnu glances, and then the glance takes the form of Shambhu, and then all the jivas are transferred into material nature. So then how can we say that material nature is beginningless? How to answer that question? Who can say? Is material nature existing only at that time? Before the glance of Mahavishnu, it is existing in which form? We have done this before.
It is eternal.
It is eternal. So in which form it is existing? Material nature.
Unmanifested.
In the unmanifested state, yes, very nice. So that unmanifested state is called
Right? Pradhan.
Pradhan. Yes, Pradhan. Very good. So this material nature is beginningless because even before Mahavishnu glances, and the whole material nature gets activated, it is still existing before that. It is existing in the unmanifested state, in the Pradhana state. So this material world is a dark corner in the spiritual sky. So even material nature is beginningless. Okay, so both material nature and living entities, both you cannot trace the beginning. No, what is the time when they both started their existence? So both are beginningless. This is common. Now, what is the difference between the two? Next, what Krishna says, their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So material nature undergoes transformations. No, material nature undergoes transformations. But the jiva, the living entity, never changes. The jiva, the living entity, always remains the same. The jiva doesn't undergo any transformations. The body undergoes transformations. Now, the soul is covered by the subtle body and the gross body. The subtle body and the gross body both undergo transformations. No, we grow old, we get diseases. Even in the subtle body, on the subtle level, there are so many impressions that are created on the mind, and then the mind is changing. We say, no, I changed my mind. So the subtle body and the gross body undergo transformations. But the soul, the jiva, does not undergo any transformation. So here Krishna is explaining what is common between the two. And the difference is the transformations and the modes of material nature are products of, and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So here in this section, Krishna is going to explain Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha here, Krishna is saying, are the living entities. Prakriti is material nature. Let's go to 21.
कारणकर्तृत्वे हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते.
Translation. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Hare Krishna.
Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects. And living entity is the cause of various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So Krishna is talking about two aspects here. What are the two aspects? One is desire and the other is karma. Who desires? Nature or living entity? Prakriti or Purusha? Who is
Living
making the desire?
entity.
Entity.
The living entity, isn't it? So the living entity, because the living entity desires, therefore the living entity is the cause of the sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Because whatever the living entity desires, that is causing him pain and suffering. I mean, pain and enjoyment. If the living entity has spiritual desires, there's nothing wrong in having desires, but you have to spiritualize the desires. If the living entity has spiritual desires, then he can enjoy. But if the living entity has material desires, it is only going to bring suffering. Why? Because material desires will never come to an end. It will never satisfy the living entity. If one has a cycle, then he wants a two-wheeler. If one has a two-wheeler, one wants to have a car. So like that, the desires will continue and therefore it causes sufferings. And then based on the desire comes the karma. So nature is said to be the cause of material causes and effects. So what is causing? What is the cause of all these material causes and effects? It is the karma, the karmic reaction based on the desire of the living entity. So the living entity desires, but the karma has to be paid. No? So the material nature gives you, material nature is like, is neutral and is giving you what you deserve based on what you have desired. See some points from the purport. Different manifestations of body and senses among living entities are due to material nature. So material nature is creating these different bodies and senses. No, it's creating 8.4 million species. So there are 8.4 different kinds or varieties of bodies that are available to award to the jiva based on what the jiva desires. If the living entity has, for example, the desire to engage in eating without discrimination, no, eating that which is fit for human consumption, eats without discrimination, then what kind of a body the jiva is going to get?
Of a pig.
of a pig, of a hog. Yes, because the hog eats without any discrimination. The hog even eats stool, isn't it? The hog enjoys stool. If a living species, if the living entity loves to pose without clothes in public places, no, or be printed in magazines and movies wearing very little or no clothing at all, then what kind of a body the jiva is going to get in the next life?
Tree.
Tree.
That of a tree, because the tree is in full public display without having any covering, isn't it? So like that, based on one's desires, there are different bodies and senses that are manifested by material nature. Lord Brahma, he creates the different bodies, no? He creates the different bodies. Why? Why? Because a human body is not meant for such sense gratificatory activities. Human body is meant for tapasya. Human body is meant to realize God. But if one uses his human body in sense gratificatory activities, then fine. Then you will be awarded that body where you can enjoy the senses in that particular way. For that, you don't need a human body. So different bodies result in different happiness and distress. Conclusion, material happiness and distress are due to the body and not to himself, the soul as he is. So it doesn't matter if the soul is in the body of the pig, or the soul is in the body of the human being, or the soul is in the body of a devata also, even Lord Brahma. It does not change. The soul remains as it is. The soul does not undergo any transformations. So material happiness and distress are due to the body. So cause of being in the material world, desire to lord it over the material nature. So we want to lord over the material nature. We want to be the controllers. We want to be the big Purushas. No, we want to enjoy independent of Krishna. But we forget that we are only minute. We can only enjoy with Krishna. No. Here there may be some enjoyment, there may be some moments of happiness, because material world is a mixture of happiness and distress. But by and large, there is more distress than there is happiness. Happiness here is short-lived and it is temporary. No, it is temporary, it is not permanent. But the happiness and the joy in the spiritual world is eternal, and it is not only eternal, it is ever increasing. No, the bliss in the spiritual world is ever increasing bliss. So spiritual world is pure and free from the desire to lord it over. Spiritual world is pure. There is no space for any desire in the spiritual world to be able to be the controllers. No. So spiritual world is pure. As soon as there is any impurity in our consciousness, immediately we fall down and we come in the material world, because in the spiritual world there is no space for such thoughts. Then Srila Prabhupada explains, material world is a place of struggle, provides different residential quarters. So the body is the residential quarter for the soul. Now the soul is residing in that particular body. So there are different residential quarters that are provided, 8,400,000. Everyone is struggling to acquire different kinds of pleasures from the body. Body is the effect of senses, and senses are the instruments for gratifying the desires. So how do we gratify our desires? By using our senses. So the senses are the instruments for gratifying the desires. The living entity gets a body according to past desire and activity. So what kind of a body we are getting is based on two factors, based on what we desire and what we deserve. No, so what we deserve according to the kind of activities that we have engaged in. Now we may desire to have the body of Lord Brahma. No, I want to be Lord Brahma, but then I should also have the karmic backing for that. I should be also deserving it. No, I should have lived 100 of my lifetimes perfectly executing the Varna Ashram system. Now on the other side, I may deserve it. I may have lived 100 lifetimes perfectly executing the Varna Ashram dharma, but I may not desire it. So who's going to force me to do it? Just like how somebody may be a qualified surgeon to perform a transplant surgery. No, so he's qualified, he has the degrees, he has the practice required, but he does not want to perform the operation. So who's going to force him? On the other hand, one may want to perform an operation, one may want to perform a transplant surgery, but he is not qualified to do it. No, he has not studied for it. He does not have the required qualification, so then he's not going to be allowed to perform that surgery. So two things are very important: what we desire and what we deserve. So what kind of body we get is based on these two factors. Past desire and activity decide one's residential quarters. So the current body that we have, this body that we have, is because in the past we desired and we also deserved it. What we do right now is determining what is going to be our next body. So just imagine, one may lead a very successful life. One may be very materially successful. One may be the richest person. One may be the most beautiful. One may be the most intelligent also, no? But then if in the next life one is going to become cats and dogs, then what is so glorious about that lifetime? What is so glorious? So law of nature, once a body is attained, one comes under the laws of nature and behaves as a dog or a hog or a demigod. So yes, the soul does not change, but because then the soul is acquiring a body, then one is forced to behave according to the body that one has acquired. If that soul is in the body of a dog, then the dog is going to bark unnecessarily. No, if that soul is in the body of a hog, then that living entity is going to enjoy eating stool, right? If that soul is in the body of a demigod, then he has so many powers and extraordinary potencies. So, but whatever, doesn't matter what kind of a body one has, dog, hog, or demigod, the soul always accompanies us in all circumstances, in all the bodies. So that is how supremely merciful Krishna is. See this quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Rishabdev told his sons, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. So just imagine the human being, if he's working hard, if he's slogging it out day and night, he's working, no, a workaholic. At the end of the day, what for? For sense gratification? Then what is the use of that? Because that sense gratification of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is even available to the dogs and hogs that eat the stool. Now, we may be dining in fine restaurants, but we are only engaging in sense gratification, just as how the hogs are eating stool, even though they are eating stool, but they think that this is great, no? So we in a fine restaurant may think that, oh, this food is great, but the hog also that is eating stool is thinking, wow, this is great. So that sense gratification is available even for the dogs and hogs. One should engage in penance. So a human being should engage in penance, should engage in tapasya and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. So human body is meant for this. By such activity, one's heart is purified. So devotional service purifies the heart. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So this sense gratification, this happiness is not going to continue forever, but the happiness, the transcendental blissful life in the spiritual world will continue forever, continue forever. So unless we don't put ourselves in the fire of bhakti, purification will not happen. No, purification will not happen. See, heart is purified. So just as how gold has to be put in fire for purification, in the same way, we have to put ourselves in the fire of bhakti. Then purification will happen. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of misery. So if we have a body that is causing us a lot of misery, maybe we have bad health, or maybe we are born in a slum area where even to get one good meal is a struggle, isn't it? So like that, different struggles are there. So but we have no one else to blame but us, because that body that we have got is only because of what we deserve and what we desire. No, so intelligence is okay. We cannot change. I cannot change my suffering body to another body, no, to the body of a devata, for example. I cannot change that. But what I can do is I can use this current body to engage in devotional service so that I can get the best body, not a better body, but so that I can get the best body. What is the best body to get? What is the best body to get?
Spiritual body.
Spiritual body, yes, exactly. Spiritual body. So we can get better bodies, like the body of Devatas are better than human bodies because there are more facilities, no. But what is the use? Because even the Devatas, their lifetime only lasts so long. No, it lasts for extraordinary periods of time. But at the end of the day, it is going to come to an end. So the best body is to get a spiritual body. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. So initially, we should have not taken only this material body. It was a mistake, no? It was a bad deal to accept this material body. But we have been awarded this body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. See, sometimes we say, no, okay, you make a mistake once, but you learn from your mistake. But if you are repeating the mistake over and over and over again, then if you will call that person foolish, isn't it? Because he never learns from his mistakes. So such a person is foolish. So, okay, we made a mistake. We accepted this material body, but now we can learn from our mistake. No, we have to learn how many more lifetimes we are going to give to Maya, how many more lifetimes we are going to enjoy in sense gratification. When are we going to surrender to Krishna? So Prahlad Maharaj calls this as chewing the chewed. When we chew a bubble gum or we chew sugar cane, no, fresh sugar cane, when we are chewing it initially, there is some juice, no, there is some enjoyment, but there is a point when there is no more juice coming out, and then we just throw it away. No more. So like that. But if we continue to chew that which has already been chewed, then it's foolishness, isn't it? So if we are going to enjoy in sense gratification life after life after life, then that is also foolishness. See, let's see a video by His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj.
I remember once I was sitting here on the bank of the river Ganga, and up above me I looked into a cloudless sky, and soaring was a hawk. Its feathers of brown, gold, red seemed to be illuminated by the sun. It was circling lower and lower and lower till it was just a few meters above my head. And I looked up at this hawk and saw its yellow eyes intensely gazing into the river, looking for something. Suddenly, the hawk dove headfirst right into the river Ganga. Then there was a skirmish. There was splashing, and the hawk was underwater mainly. And a few seconds later, came out with a flapping fish in his claws. Fish was struggling and squirming for its life as the hawk flew into the forest out of sight. But that fish was just swimming along like any other day, with its friends, its family, looking for food, having fun, swishing around. Didn't expect anything traumatic to happen. But suddenly, that fish was ripped right out of its reality. Away from everything it identified with. was about to die. And isn't that situation potentially for everyone? We just go upon our lives like any other day, and the hawk of fate strikes. There's a death in the family, there's a traumatic experience, disease, or death itself. Perhaps I was thinking at that time, the lesson is we should not be complacent. We should take the opportunities we have in our spiritual life very, very seriously. One of the greatest enemies for a yogi is procrastination. We just get into the groove of our lives and we put the most important things off for another day. But we do not know that this yellow-eyed hawk of fate may come for us at any moment. But then there was another lesson. That if that fish was swimming deeper, the hawk couldn't touch it. In the same way, if we go deeper into our spiritual practices, deeper into our meditation, our satsang, our kirtan, absorb our minds to that deeper place within our heart where there is real fulfillment, then whatever situation may come upon us in this world, it cannot really affect us.
So what is the lesson we learned? What does
To
His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj explain?
practice our
Basically,
spiritual life.
with all seriousness,
Devotion.
isn't it?
Seriousness
With
and
all,
devotion.
we have to become serious, because he is explaining how the fish was there in the water enjoying. It never thought that something dramatic is going to happen. But suddenly this hawk comes and rips the fish away from its comfort zone, isn't it? So like that, we may think that we are well settled, no, well settled. We think that we are well settled. But we never know when death will strike, when that hawk will come and just rip us apart. Death can strike at any time and just rip the soul out of the body. That time we have no time to think that, okay, no, please give me some more extra time. We may be willing to give all our wealth, everything that we possess to the Yamadutas. No, but the Yamadutas are not interested in giving us any extra time. Even one moment more, we are not going to get extra. We may not be so fortunate like Ajamila. No, Ajamila got some extra time. He got a second chance, but we may not be so fortunate. So let's not become what you call surface devotees. Surface devotees. If that fish was swimming deep into the waters, then that hawk would have not been able to lift that fish. So like that, if we go deep dive down into our devotional life, if we take our spirituality in all seriousness, then we will not, even when death strikes, of course, devotees also die, but death for a devotee means going back home, back to God. Death for a devotee does not mean again becoming cats and dogs and hogs and eating stool and enjoying again in sense gratificatory activities. No, so let's not become surface devotees. Let us do whatever it takes. No, of course we have to sacrifice, we have to surrender. So let's just do whatever it takes and simply surrender to Guru and Krishna. We have to treat this as an emergency. Treat this as an emergency. No, Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, he describes death as sarvahara. Sarvahara. Sarvahara means death is that which takes away everything, everything. You may have worked hard, no, slog day in and day out. It takes away your wealth, it takes away your beauty, it takes away your intelligence, it even takes away your identity. You say, who are you? I am so and so. People say, I am so and so. But even your identity is taken away by death. So death is sarvahara, it takes away everything. So let's not be the surface devotees. No, see, in the animal kingdom, the honeybees, no, the whole life that honeybee works, no, to collect nectar. The honeybee goes to different flowers and is collecting nectar. You will see that's what the bee does throughout its lifetime. The bee is going to different flowers and collecting the nectar, and it manages to collect about 1 spoon of honey throughout its lifetime. No, throughout its lifetime. And then what happens? The man comes who wants to collect the honey. He comes with a stick and fire, and he puts fire there, and all the honeybees have to go away, or some of them are scorched, and then he takes the honey and he walks away. So all this hard-earned work of the honeybee is taken away just like that by that person who came to take away the honey. So what is the point in working so hard? We have to Yes, we have duties to perform. We have to do our material duties, but there is a difference between material duties and material sense gratification. Do your material duties as far as possible. We have to keep our life simple. Keep it simple. Don't complicate. Let's not complicate our life. Now, in the name of socialization, there is so much of sense gratificatory activities that are going on. No? So let's not become surface devotees. Let's come out of the comfort zone. Do whatever it takes. Simply surrender to Guru and Krishna and treat this as an emergency. Very, very important. So one may think that, okay, but although I'm trying hard, I'm not able to get over my material desires. No, I'm not able to control my material desires. I cannot surrender 100%. I'm not able to do it. So then what? Let's see what Srila Prabhupada said at the end of one lecture. At the end of one lecture, Srila Prabhupada told his devotees, if you become 90% Krishna conscious, you will go back home, back to Godhead. Looking out into his audience, he saw that the devotees looked crestfallen. So then he said, if you become 80% Krishna conscious, you will go back home, back to Godhead. Still, the devotees expressed doubt that they could become even 80% Krishna conscious. So then Srila Prabhupada said, okay, 70%. And then the devotees responded with a big jai. But as Srila Prabhupada was returning to his quarters, another devotee expressed concern that he would not be able to become even 70% Krishna conscious. So then Prabhupada said, okay, you just hold on to my dhoti. I have the key to the back door. So the spiritual master is that personality who can take you to the spiritual world even though you are not 100% qualified. Even though you are not 100% qualified. Because the mercy of the Guru, there is so much potency in the mercy of the Guru that he can take you through the back door. He can sneak you in, and Krishna allows it. Why does Krishna allow it? Not because he loves that devotee who's not 100% Krishna conscious, but because he loves. Of course, Krishna loves everyone, but he loves the most his pure devotees. Remember, Krishna says, as you surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. So because a spiritual master is a pure devotee, Krishna wants to fulfill the desire of that pure devotee 100%. So because a pure devotee desires that his disciples go back home, back to Godhead, therefore Krishna will sanction it. Therefore Krishna will allow it. So spiritual master is that person who will let you in, even though you are not 100% Krishna conscious. See, if you want to gain admission into a prestigious university, either you have to be qualified, and if you don't have qualified, then you have to be having some strong recommendation, isn't it? So we may lack so many qualifications to enter into the spiritual world, but based on the recommendation of the spiritual master, we can get into this prestigious university. We can get into the spiritual world. Let's go to 22.
पुरुषः प्रकृतिस्थो हि भुङ्क्ते प्रकृतिजान् गुणान् कारणं गुणसङ्गोऽस्य सदसद्यो निजन्मसु.
Translation. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Hare Krishna.
So here Krishna is explaining how the living entity transmigrates to different bodies in this material world. So he's transmigrating, following the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. So everything in this material world is a combination of the three modes of material nature: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Sattva guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. This is due to his association with that material nature. So although the soul does not change, but because the soul is associating with nature from time immemorial, no, the soul is enveloped in the subtle body and the gross body. So the soul behaves, or the soul engage, the living entity is engaging in sense gratificatory activities according to the body it has got. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among different species, good and evil. So yes, of course, in the material world, there is distress and there is happiness in all the species. So material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So that's why the living entities here are called as conditioned. No? We are conditioned by the three modes of material nature. These three modes control the activities of the pure living entity in this world based on their desires and permitted by their karma. So how many different kinds of bodies are there? You already saw? How many different kinds of
8.4
species?
million.
8.4 million.
Yeah, 8.4 million different kinds of bodies. Trees, aquatics, animals, reptiles, no, human bodies like that. So this is how we are. The soul is transmigrating. So be not human silkworms, be humans. Very nice article by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. The silkworm makes a cocoon around itself for the sake of protection, but that very cocoon usually ends becoming the cause of its destruction. Similarly, most human beings are currently encaged by material desires that propel them to seek protection and pleasure in material objects. However, everything material is by its very nature temporary. That's why, as time takes its toll, the same material things that promise to be sources of protection become the cause of devastation. So we are thinking that these material things are going to give us pleasure, but those very material things are going to give us distress. Just like how the cocoon, no, the silkworm builds this cocoon for protection, but then eventually it is killed because then the human being comes and uses the cocoon to make silk, isn't it? But anyway, so the idea here is what we are thinking is going to protect us is that what leads to our devastation. Whatever gives us pleasure when we possess it gives us pain when time dispossesses us. The Bhagavad Gita indicates that our own desire to enjoy the material creates a cocoon of material attachments that end in misery. Thus, we become human silkworms. So let's not become human silkworms. Let's become humans. Let's use this human body for what it has to be used for realizing God. The road that ends in a ditch needs to be ditched. The path of materialism ends in old age, disease, death, and then rebirth. Thus, we stay fallen in the ditch of material existence. We should ditch the road that ends in this ditch by redirecting our consciousness from the world to our Lord and Source Krishna. So if we know that there is a ditch in a particular road, no, we are going to have to look for another way to get to our destination, go through another road, not take the same road and again end up in that ditch. So in the same way, when we realize by the mercy of Guru and Krishna that this path of materialism is actually a ditch road, then we have to take to the spiritual path. That is intelligence. 23.
उपदृष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भोक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहेऽस्मिन् पुरुषः परः.
Translation. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. Hare Krishna.
So now Krishna is talking about the actual Purusha, the actual enjoyer. Who is that?
The super soul.
The super soul, no? Krishna himself. So here, Krishna is explaining, yet in this body there is another. So previously he was talking about the living entity, and now he's talking about the super soul. So in this body there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord. He is the supreme proprietor. So here are the characteristics of the super soul. He is the Lord, he is the transcendental enjoyer, he is the supreme proprietor. And what is he doing? What are his functions in the heart? He is the overseer and the permitter, Upadrishta and Anumanta. See, so what does he do? He oversees our activities. He is one of the witnesses of all our activities. There are 13 witnesses who are observing our activities. So we must not think that when we are doing something wrong, okay, nobody knows about it, nobody has seen it. No, there are 13 witnesses, and the most important of those 13 witnesses is the super soul, no, because he's always there in our heart and he's overseeing our activities. So not only does he oversee our activities, he also permits. So there is nothing we can do without the sanction of the Lord. So the super soul is also permitting our actions. So he's the overseer and the permitter, and he is known as the super soul, Krishna says. Now, when we say that he is the permitter, so he's permitting everything. No, so one may say, so everything that happens is God's will. Everything that happens is God's will. Now, so everything that happens is intended by God. Is the statement correct? Everything that happens is intended by God.
No.
That's what
Yes.
this sentence means.
No.
No. Anybody says yes?
Yes, I said yes.
I said yes.
Okay. So let us say one more example. If everything is the intention of God, was it Krishna's intention that Draupadi should be disrobed?
No.
It was not his intention, right?
Mhm.
So does God want people to do bad things? Is
No,
that the
no.
intention of God?
No, not at all.
Okay, now let's see more. So what does the statement actually mean? Everything that happens is God's will. What does the statement actually mean? Everything that happens is not intended by God, but is allowed by him. There are two different things. They are two different things. Just as how a parent may allow a child sometimes to eat sweets, although you know that it's not good for the child. No, so the parent is allowing it, but that is not the intention of the parent. So everything that happens is not intended by God, but it is allowed by him. So Krishna didn't want that Draupadi should be disrobed. The Kauravas wanted that. The Kauravas wanted that. So Krishna allows people to use their free will, to use the minute independence within the limits of their karma. So they don't have full independence. The Kauravas didn't have full independence to do what they want, because ultimately they were punished for their activities. No, when they did a lot of nonsense before the disrobing of Draupadi. But with this was it. Krishna said, now, no more. No, karma had to strike. So Krishna allows people to use their free will within the limits of their karma. So what the Kauravas were able to do was because they were allowed to use their minute independence. So Krishna allows it, but that is not the intention of Krishna. So one cannot say that I committed this murder because Krishna made me do it. No, sometimes there was a serial killer in the US, and he said that I killed all these people because God made me do it. God made me do it. So we should not misunderstand. Everything that happens is God's will. It means that it is not intended by him. It means that he is allowing it. So one may think that then why did Draupadi have to go through that anxiety? Because the Kauravas wanted to use their free will. So one must understand that by Draupadi, when she went through that anxiety. Now, when we go through anxieties, when we go through uh, uh, some unpleasant experiences, it helps us purify ourselves. It helps us in some purification. It helps us purify. Now, in the case of Draupadi also benefited by that incident. How did Draupadi benefit by that incident? Because today we see we glorify Draupadi as that personality who never gave up dharma even under the most trying circumstances. The most harrowing experience of her life was when she was being disrobed in the entire royal assembly. Just imagine that state. But even when she was being disrobed, she never gave up dharma. When she was pulled and brought by when she was pulled by a hair and brought into the assembly, in such an insulting way, even then she did not forget to offer obeisances, to offer respects to the elders of the family over there. She didn't forget that. Even there she maintained the respect due to the elders of the family. And then another thing that she did, which is very noteworthy, is that there was this point when Dhritarashtra was very afraid. He was very afraid, and so he wanted to kind of ease off the situation. And so he told Draupadi that you please ask me boons. Whatever you ask, I will give you. Whatever you ask, I will give you. So she asked she asked that her husband should be released because they had become slaves. They had lost the match and they had become slaves of the Kauravas, all the five Pandavas. So she asked that her husband should be released, and she asked for the release of which of her five husbands?
Arjuna.
Arjuna.
Yudhishthir, isn't it? She asked for the release of Yudhishthir because he is the eldest of the five brothers. No, so she maintained the respect of Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir was that same husband who actually gambled her away. No, it was not Yudhishthir who won her Swayamvar also. It was Arjuna who won her Swayamvar. No? So she didn't ask for the release of Arjuna or any other of the Pandavas. She asked for the release of Yudhishthir. So even at that situation, she did the right thing. She did the right thing. And it was she who restored the glories of her husbands because her husbands had lost everything. Everything that they possessed, they lost even themselves. They had become slaves. But it was she who restored the glories of those five glorious Pandavas. No, she restored their glory. Another thing, Dhritarashtra was again ready to give her more boons. He said, okay, ask more, ask more. But she said, no, according to Shastra, only 2 boons should be awarded to a woman. So she said, I have already got my 2 boons, now no more, because that's not what the Shastra permits. No. So even in that harrowing situation, she always stuck to Dharma. She always stuck to Dharma. So by that incident of her being disrobed, her glory, she's actually glorified even more, and her glorious nature was revealed. Okay. So Krishna's purpose is not to catch us when we do wrong, but to catch us when we fall. So we discuss how the super soul is also the overseer. He's not only permitting, but he also is seeing what we are doing. So why is Krishna doing that? Is he trying to catch us when we do wrong? What is his intention? No. Krishna's purpose in witnessing is to help, to catch us when we fall, to lift us up by giving us wisdom and inspiration. He is not a policeman out to lay down the law, but a parent out to lift up his stumbling children with his love. Understanding his benevolent intention can hearten us in our struggle against our lower nature that causes us to slip and fall. We are weak, but Krishna is supremely strong, and he can and will compensate for our weaknesses, as he assures in the Gita, provided we just strive to be conscious of him. So Krishna is always there to help us. He is not there to catch us, like a policeman. He is there like a loving parent to hold us, to uplift us when we fall. So what we have to do, we have to only strive to be conscious of him. We have to sincerely try. All that we have to do is we have to sincerely try. Krishna is not saying do the best. He is saying do your best. You strive. So we have to at least be fighting in the struggle against Maya. As a warrior, he should be at least fighting on the battlefield. A warrior has to at least fight in the battlefield. Otherwise, what is the use of a warrior? So we have to be fighting in the battle against Maya. So we should sincerely try. Gradually, by the combination of our diligence and his benevolence, our falls will become less and less frequent till we eventually march firmly onwards and upwards towards him. Another nice article by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Okay, let's go to 24.
य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते.
Translation. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interactions of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Hare Krishna.
So what is the result of getting this knowledge that which Krishna has explained? No, in this chapter, Krishna says, if you understand this philosophy concerning material nature, living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature, what is the result of that? You are sure to attain liberation, Krishna says. So such a person will not take birth here again, regardless of the present position. No, one may be the most fallen, one may be the most rotten, but if one can understand this philosophy, then one is sure to attain liberation. Why? Because if you are tied up, no, if you are knotted up and you want to remove the knots of that rope that are binding you, you have to understand how that rope is intertwining with each other in order to unlock it. You need to understand the lock mechanism of the lock to be able to open the lock. So therefore, if we understand this philosophy, then we are sure to attain liberation. Then we can open that lock that's binding us. 25.
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मानमात्मना अन्ये साङ्ख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे.
Translation. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Hare Krishna.
So one may ask, okay, Krishna in the previous verse, he says that if you understand this knowledge, no, if you understand this philosophy, then you can attain liberation. So one may ask that if is there any other way by which we can attain the same result? So Krishna says, yes, you can attain the same result by what? By perceiving the super soul within themselves through meditation. So which yoga system is this? Jnana, dhyana, karma?
Jnana Yoga.
No. Perceiving the super soul within themselves through meditation is jnana or karma.
Dhyana Yoga.
Dhyana yoga. Others through the cultivation of knowledge. Now this is?
Jnana Yoga.
Yes. And still others through working without fruitive results is?
This is
Bhakti Yoga.
Karma.
Karma yoga.
Karma
No?
Yoga.
Working without fruitive desires is giving the results. But if you give the results to Krishna, then it is Bhakti Yoga. But if you don't give the results to Krishna, then it is Karma Yoga. So Krishna is saying you can attain the same through Jnana Yoga, through Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and through Karma Yoga also. Now, if you cannot do even this, then is there any chance? Let's see what Krishna says next.
अन्ये त्वेवमजानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्यः उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः.
Translation. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Hare Krishna.
So here what is Krishna focusing on? Here what is he insisting on? Krishna is saying that even if you're not conversant in spiritual knowledge, if you begin to worship the Supreme Person, how? Upon hearing about him from others, upon hearing about him from others. So here Krishna is focusing on the importance, or he's stressing on the importance of hearing, no? Of course, we know by now at this stage of this course that we have to hear from bona fide authorities. So when we hear about him from others, then also one can transcend the path of birth and death. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. See, in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult. There are hardly anyone who are able to successfully engage in Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Yoga, perfectly executing it. So all of us, actually, the whole of ISKCON is based on this, on hearing from authorities. The more we hear from Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, the more we can perfect our life and we can transcend the path of birth and death. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his difference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. So, without delay. So, one, if you're anxious to hear, then all your miseries will go away without delay. So, miseries means what miseries? No more material miseries, because in the spiritual world there is no miseries, there is no anxiety. Vaikuntha means a place where there is no anxiety. So it all begins with hearing. We know the 9 processes of devotional service begins with hearing, no, Shravanam. Now we come to the last section of this Bhagavad Gita. In this section, there is nothing that we are going to see that we have not seen before. This is like a summary of what we have already seen. So let us do our revision. 27.
यावत् सञ्जायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमम् क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ.
Translation. O chief of Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Hare Krishna.
So Krishna is saying that everything that you see is only a combination of 2 things. What is it? The field of activities and the knower of the field of activities is a combination of the Kshetra and the Kshetragya. So Kshetra is the body, and Kshetragya, there are 2 Kshetragyas. Who are they? The soul and the super soul. So everything that you see in existence is a combination of the body, the soul, and the super soul. Everything is under this. For example, now, what do you see here?
Mona Lisa painting.
Okay. Anybody else wants to try? What is this?
It's a Mona Lisa.
Okay. Mona Lisa. Anybody else? Okay. Now, if I say that any painting is nothing but a combination of 3 things. So actually this painting, which we know by the name Mona Lisa, is actually nothing but a combination of 3 basic
The soul, the
colors.
super soul,
Yes,
and
colors.
the knower.
It's a combination of 3 basic colors. No, so any painting, including Mona Lisa, is nothing but a combination of 3 basic colors. So like that, everything this material world is a permutation of the 3 modes of material nature. So the combination of 3 basic colors gives us infinite depictions. So many paintings, everything is nothing but a combination of 3 basic colors. In the same way, the combination and permutation of the 3 modes of material nature gives rise to infinite desires. So many desires. And to suit all those desires, then we have 8,400,000 different kinds of bodies are created. 28.
समं सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरं विनश्यत्स्व विनश्यन्तं यः पश्यति स पश्यति.
Translation. One who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. Hare Krishna.
So say in this final section of this chapter is called Jnana Chakshu. No, Jnana Chakshu means you actually see with knowledge. Jnana means knowledge and Chakshu means vision. So who is the real seer? Who is the one who actually sees? No, in this section, Jnana Chakshu we are discussing. Krishna is discussing. So one who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies. So one who has this Jnana Chakshu is one who sees the super soul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, and who understands that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructive body is ever destroyed, actually sees. So the real seer is one. The one who actually sees is one who understands that the body is destroyed, and but within the body is we have soul and the super soul, and these two personalities, they are never destroyed, and that the super soul always accompanies the soul. So one who understands this is the one who actually sees. Krishna is saying. 19.
समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरम् न हि नस्त्यात्मनात्मानं ततो याति परां गतिम्.
Translation: One who sees the Supersoul equally present everywhere, in every living being, does not degrade himself by his mind, thus he approaches the transcendental destination. Hare Krishna.
So now that actual seer who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living being does not degrade himself by his mind. And because he does not degrade himself by his mind, he approaches the transcendental destination. Now, why is it that such a person does not degrade himself? What is the answer? One who sees the super soul equally present everywhere does not degrade himself. Why he does not degrade himself? Because such a person who can actually see and understand that the super soul is accompanying the living entity in every body, he is listening to the super soul or he is listening to his mind. Whom is he listening to?
Super soul.
He is listening to the super soul, and therefore he does not degrade himself. But one who does not see this, then he is only listening to his mind, then he is only engaging in sense gratification, and that's such a person will degrade himself by his mind. 30.
प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानम् अकर्तारं स पश्यति.
Translation: One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Hare Krishna.
So the actual seer is one who sees. Now, what does he see? All activities are performed by the body, because the living entity is now forced to enter into a particular body based on his past desires and what he deserves. No, and now that living entity is engaging in activities according to the body it has got. So one who sees that, one who sees that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature. So of course the body is material, and sees that the self does nothing, or the soul does nothing. The soul remains unchanged. The soul does not undergo any transformation. One person who can see this, he is a person who actually sees. He is a person who actually sees. Now, for example, a hog, when he sees a plate of nice, delicious, hot gulab jamuns, is he happy?
No.
No. When he sees stool, is he happy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, isn't it? Because now the soul is in the body of a pig, and this pig is going to enjoy this, not enjoy this. But if that soul was in a human body, then he would have enjoyed this, and he would look at this with disgust, isn't it? So the three different entities see the same object with three different consciousness. For example, now we are seeing three different entities. Now here, if there is a beautiful woman and a tiger sees her, now she has a vulture's body. What is the tiger seeing her as? Is the tiger happy to see
Yes.
a vulture's woman? Because he sees food, isn't it? He's seeing that there is more flesh, so there is more food for me to enjoy.
Eat.
If a lusty man sees the same woman, what is the consciousness here? He is looking at her with lusty desires because he wants to enjoy with her, right? But if a pure devotee sees her, what is he thinking? He is thinking, how can I help her come out of this bodily concept of life? How can I connect her to Krishna? No? So the soul is the same, but the bodies are different. No? So three different entities see the same object with three different consciousness. 31.
यदा भूतपृथग्भावम् एकस्थमनुपश्यति तत एव च विस्तारम् ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा.
When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Hare Krishna.
So when a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to the different material bodies, no, which means a real seer is one who stops seeing that the jiva is the body. We know from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita itself that the first lesson in spiritual life is I am not this body, I am spirit soul. I am not what I see in the mirror. That is not me. That is only an external covering. So a sensible man has to stop seeing that these different entities, these different living entities are different from the body. No? So the body is different from the soul. Such a person who sees this is the real seer. So he sees how beings are expanded everywhere. So there is no place where the living entity does not exist. Such a person can attain to the Brahman conception. Such a person is seeing with the spiritual angle of vision. If he sees that that person is the body, then he is looking at that person from the material angle of vision. So remember, this section is Jnana Chakshu. 32.
अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते.
Translation. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. Hare Krishna.
So what is Krishna saying here? That although the living entity, although the spirit soul has come in contact with this material body, so we know that the soul is covered by the subtle and gross bodies. So although Krishna is saying, although the soul has come in touch with the material body, still the soul does nothing nor is entangled. So the soul is not bound even though it is within the material body. Now, how is that possible? How to understand that the soul is not bound even though it is inside that subtle and gross body? That Krishna explains in the next verse by an example. Let us see.
यथा सर्वगतं सौक्ष्म्यात् आकाशं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मानोपलिप्यते.
Translation. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Hare Krishna.
So what is the example Krishna is giving here is that of the sky. The sky is present everywhere, but still the sky is not mixing with everything. The sky still remains the sky. The sky is not getting mixed with anything else, although it is pervading everywhere. So in the same way, Krishna is saying, the soul does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. The soul still continues to remain completely spiritual, although it is situated in a material body. So this is the example Krishna is giving. 34.
यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत.
Translation. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminates the entire body by consciousness. Hare Krishna.
So Krishna is explaining the same point now by giving the example of the sun. Previously he gave the example of the sky. Now he's giving the example of the sun. So what is Krishna saying? Just as how the sun is illuminating all the universe, but is not getting mixed with the universe, in the same way, the living entity, the soul, is illuminating the entire body by consciousness. So we know as long as the soul is present in the body, we are conscious. Once the soul leaves the body is a dead body, isn't it?
Dead body.
So the soul is illuminating the entire body by consciousness, just as how the sun is illuminating the entire universe.
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अन्तरं ज्ञानचक्षुषा भूतप्रकृतिमोक्षं च ये विदुर्यान्ति ते परम् ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञविभागयोगो नाम त्रयोदशोऽध्यायः
Translation. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature attain to the supreme goal. Hare Krishna.
So this is a one-verse summary of the chapter that Krishna is giving. What is he saying? What is the title of the chapter, by the way?
It's the nature and enjoyer of the consciousness.
Yes, nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So what is Krishna saying here? Those who see with eyes of knowledge, jnana chakshu, what do they see? The difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature. They can attain to the supreme goal. So the title is nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. So what is nature here?
Kshetra. No, Kshetra, not Kshetra. Nature. Um,
Can you please repeat your
When we
question?
say nature, what do we mean by nature?
Prakriti.
Is it the field?
Material nature. Material nature. Okay,
Material
nature,
nature.
enjoyer, and consciousness. So when Krishna says nature, or when the title says nature, we are talking about the material nature. Okay, nature, the enjoyer. Now, who's the enjoyer?
Kshetragya.
The
No.
knower of the body, the living entity.
Body, yeah.
No, the living entity is also the enjoyer, but the real enjoyer is
Krishna.
Krishna, isn't it? And then consciousness. Now, when we say consciousness, now we are talking about
The soul.
the living entity. Yes. So nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness, material nature, the supreme lord, the real enjoyer, the Purusha with a big P, capital P, and consciousness means living entity. So Krishna is saying those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body. The body is material, right? There are two knowers of the body. We know that there are two knowers of the body, the individual soul and the super soul. So
Super
that is
soul.
nothing but nature, enjoyer, and consciousness. And those who can understand the process of liberation in this material, from this material nature, can attain to the supreme goal. So with this, by the mercy of Sri Guru and Sri Krishna, we come to the end of this particular chapter. When I share the slides in the group, you can see these chapter summaries. But I want to discuss, okay, let's see the summary by Srila Prabhupada. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul.
Super soul.
One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's discuss one point, actually 2 points. See, here are the 6 questions that Arjuna asked. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnana and Jnana. First, Krishna answered Kshetra, then Kshetragya, then Jnana, then Jnana. Then finally, he answered Arjuna's first 2 questions, Prakriti and Purusha. So why do you think Krishna is answering? Krishna did not answer Arjuna's questions in the same order in which Arjuna asked. Why didn't Krishna first explain Prakriti, Purusha, then Kshetra, Kshetragya, then Jnana, and then Jnana?
Because knowing the other 4, we can know the other 2.
Knowing the other 4, all 4?
We can come to know at least the Kshetra and Kshetragya, and then we can come to the other ones.
Exactly. First of all, we need to understand Kshetra and Kshetragya. We first have to understand the difference between the body and the soul. That is the basics of spiritual knowledge. No, if we don't understand who are we, if we don't understand that we are the spirit soul, then how can we understand what is Prakriti? How can we understand material nature? How can we understand what is knowledge? How can we understand the object of knowledge? How can we understand God? First of all, we have to understand who are we. No, that is the first lesson of spiritual life, that I am not this body, I am spirit soul. So if we don't understand our own identity, then we cannot understand anything else in our spiritual life. So therefore, Krishna first explains the body and the soul. So we know there are 2 Kshetragyas, the living entity and the super soul. So first you have to understand the difference between the body and the soul. Therefore, Krishna first explains Kshetra and the Kshetragya. Now, another thing that I would like to share with you is this section, which is, the question is there in your exam, the size of the super soul. Now, we have spoken about the super soul, and we also know that the size of the soul is, does anybody remember from our previous class, what is the size of the soul? 1?
1/10 of the tip of the hair.
Exactly, yes. The size of the soul is 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. So which means if we divide the tip of the hair into 10,000 parts, one of those 10,000 parts is the size of the soul. But what is the size of the super soul? What is the size of the super soul? So that information we get in Krishna book chapter 87.
That
The
thumb
Vedic
of
literature
the
states that the super soul is sitting within the heart of every living entity's body and is as big as a thumb. So what is the size of the super soul? It's the size of a thumb.
thumb.
Now one may ask that how can the size of the thumb, such a big super soul be existing in the heart of an ant, for example? No. So here Prabhupada explains. Therefore, the argument may be put forward. How can something the size of a thumb be accommodated within the heart of an ant? The answer is that this thumb measurement of the super soul is imagined in proportion to the body of the living entity. So what does that mean? It is proportional. The size of the super soul is proportional to the size of the living entity. So if the ant was to have a thumb, how big would that thumb of the ant be? That would be the size of the super soul in the body of that ant. This is what this statement means. Okay. In no circumstance, therefore, can the super soul and the living entity be taken as one, although both of them enter within the material body of a living entity. So what is the bottom line? That in no case both will be equal to one. Always the super soul is the master and the living entity is the servant. Although both of them enter within the material body of the living entities, they both have the same residence, but still they are not equal. The super soul lives within the heart to direct or control the individual living entity. Although both are dhruva or eternal, the living entity is always under the direction of the Supreme. So the size of the soul remains the same. The size of the soul is not proportional to the body. The soul is always 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. But the size of the super soul is proportional to the size of the body. So this is one important lesson about the super soul. So this question is there in your exam, and I thought I would just explain what this actually means.
So does it mean that they both are same? The Kshetra and the size of the super soul is the same, according to this sentence?
Kshetra and the size of the super soul are the same?
Yeah, because they're saying
No,
here
it's the size
proportion.
of the thumb of the body. How can it be the same? the super soul in the body of the elephant is not going to be the size of the elephant.
Okay. And the overseer. Overseer is one of the characteristics of the super soul.
Let me go to the verse. We saw that the super soul, he does two things in the heart, isn't it? Upadrishta and Anumanta. Upadrashta and Anumanta means? Does anybody remember?
Witness.
What are the two things the
Overseer
super
and
soul does in the
permitter.
heart? Hmm?
Overseer and permitter.
Overseer and permitter. So he permits the activities, and he also oversees the activities like a witness.
This would be counted in his characteristic.
Well, that is the question there. So that you have to figure out.
Isn't that symptoms of his?
That is
This
in
is
your
the-
exam. So that you'll have to figure it out. Okay, I cannot give you the exact statements from the exam. Of course. Okay.
Smart. We need help.
Yeah, so as I said, that before you hit the submit button, you can ask how many are wrong. So that facility, I have already explained that you can have that facility. Before you hit the submit button, you have two opportunities to ask how many mistakes are there. So I can tell you in which section you have how many mistakes. And then you make the corrections. And then again you can ask. And then again I can tell you. And then you hit submit. But not more than two opportunities.
So you can send me back.
Yes, I can return your paper. You can check it up. And I can also tell you how many mistakes are there. And you can, but remember to submit it before the deadline. No, the last day for submission is 23rd July. So don't forget to submit it again if you want to make any corrections. Okay, so 23rd July is your deadline. Anything else we need to discuss?
That's it.
All right then. So see you all next week if Krishna so sanctions. If Krishna so sanctions, in the next class we will start with chapter number 4. No, chapter number 14. Till then, have a nice weekend, Krishna.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vyaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Madhavi, there's a question in the chat.
Which is, let me see. How can an animal that can't think is able to desire for its next material body? Okay. So an animal does not think or have an animal does not take karma. No. So once one is an animal life, animal body, one is only transmigrating from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. So one is transmigrating through all these different bodies. The animal, the tiger, for example, does not think that I want to eat flesh, but I should be vegetarian. So no, it's not like that. No, the tiger does not take the karma for eating animals. That is only in the human body. That is only in the human body that our desires take us to the next body. But the animals are only transmigrating from one body to the other. Then how can an animal that can't? Okay, same question. So does that answer your question, Gayatri? Okay. Anything else?
Madhavi, I have just one question. When you were explaining that about Draupadi, that Krishnaji, he sanctions everything that we do, good or bad, right?
Yes, within the framework of our karma. Within the framework of our karma. If we have that karma for it, if we have that kind of balance, then yes.
What do you mean balance? I don't understand. Like people who, kill other people, who rape people, who do those kind of things. So that's Krishna sanctioning them and letting them do what they want to do?
He's sanctioning them. He's sanctioning the activity, but he's not forgiving them for that activity. He's sanctioning it. because that living entity has done some punya karmas to gain some power and some potency in this lifetime to be able to do those kind of activities. But still that person has to pay for that action. If he commits a murder, he has to pay for that action, pay for that murder that he's committing. And the person who's being murdered, now you can say that, but then because this person has gained that, within that framework of his karma, he was able to perform that murder. No, the Lord sanctioned it. So the person who's being murdered, why does he have to pay the price for it? Well, what happens is that person who's being murdered is actually also paying a past karma. Maybe he murdered somebody in his previous lifetime, or he murdered the same person in his previous lifetime. So what Krishna does is he makes the two things coincide: the desire of this living entity to commit the murder, and that living entity who is being murdered, he has to pay off his past karma. So he makes the two things coincide. Okay.
So then that would be for everybody, right? Everybody who's been killed, who's been murdered, who's been raped.
Yes, it
That's what's
applies for everyone. It applies for everyone. So if we are suffering, if somebody is causing me some anxiety, or if he's making me suffer, I cannot blame that person. I have to blame my own karma for it. Yes.
But another thing, like you said, okay, Krishna will not forget the karma that they're doing, like killing somebody. They'll kill somebody, they'll get punished by the police or whatever.
Yeah, but hold on. If he surrenders to Krishna, then everything is forgotten. Then everything is overwritten. That's why Krishna says, Sarva dharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja. Surrender all, abandon all varieties of religion and simply surrender unto me. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I take away all your past sinful reactions. So whatever murders one may have performed the most abominable sinful activities. But if he surrenders to Krishna, then everything is written off. Everything is forgotten. Now you can continue with your question.
I was
Not
going to
that
ask.
Krishna never forgives. He will forgive if you surrender. Okay. So that correction I wanted to make in your sentence.
Okay, but if you're like, say we are born to pay for our karmas. So if we're paying for the karma, like I killed somebody, somebody killed me, so it's equaled out, right? But still that person will get punished.
Which person? That person. So that's why the cycle continues. Cycle continues because neither the murderer nor the murdered have surrendered to Krishna. The cycle will continue on and on and on and on until somebody surrenders, no? Until the living entity surrenders.
No, I was confused. Like you said, right? The person is paying.
See, X has murdered Y. Okay.
Yeah.
Now Y was murdered because of his past karma.
Yes.
Now X has also committed the murder, so he has to pay for that activity.
But
Correct.
it's equaled out, right? Because he was killed in the previous
No,
life.
karma doesn't work like that. Karma doesn't work like that. Karma doesn't get equaled out. It's not that you slap me, I slap you, so it's quits. It's not like that. Again, you have to pay for the karma. It's not like that. You cannot call it quits. It's not, karma doesn't get negated. Still you have to again pay for that karma. It's not equaled out. That's not how the law of karma works.
Yes.
Okay. Because I used to
Even
think, okay,
even though you may have slapped me, because I committed something in my past life, no, it's not that it is equaled out and you will be negated from the karma. Still, you have to pay the karma for it.
oh, okay, I didn't.
I may have got released from that past karma because you slapped me, but you still have to pay the karma for it. And I, meanwhile, in this lifetime have committed another. So in the previous lifetime, maybe I committed 500 sinful activities. In this lifetime, I committed 5,000 more activities, sinful activities. So again, I have to pay for it. So the cycle will continue on and on and on and on until we don't surrender to Krishna. Because only then the slate is wiped clean.
Oh, okay. Now I thought it
No,
was,
it's not called quits. No, that's not how karma works.
because someone told me that, like, to people who want what do you call it, moksha. So to get moksha, your karma has to be nullified, it has to be zero.
Yeah.
But
So
you
karma
cannot
can
have
be
moksha.
nullified zero only when we surrender to Krishna. Otherwise, it cannot be zero.
Okay, that part was
It cannot
missing.
be
Okay.
zero. It's not possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, Divya, your hand is raised.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it true that even the Devtas long to have the human body so that they can glorify the Lord?
Yes, most definitely. Not so that they can glorify the Lord, so that they can get the opportunity, because human body in Kali Yuga especially is most ideal to perform devotional service. Now, one can perform devotional service even in Swarga, where the Devatas are residing. Devatas reside in Swarga Loka. One can perform devotional service. It is possible, but it is not plausible. Not plausible because there is so much facility for sense enjoyment that one tends to forget Krishna. The tendency is there. See, when one is very rich and very, very comfortable, then one tends to forget Krishna. When one undergoes a little bit of suffering, also a little bit of anxiety, immediately we will remember God, isn't it? So because this material world is a place of happiness and distress, no, and in Kali Yuga, it is greatly simplified, the process of going back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, yes, the Devatas, they want to have a human birth in this on these earthly planets, which is a combination of distress and happiness, and especially in Kali Yuga. The problem with Swarga Loka is there is so much facility for sense gratification that one tends to forget Krishna. And even in the hellish planets, the suffering is so much, it is so very terrible, it is so extreme, it's so painful that there also the tendency is to not remember Krishna. But here, because it's a balance of happiness and distress, no, little bit of happiness, little bit of distress, it is the most ideal place for engaging in devotional service. But that doesn't mean that one cannot, one can, no. Devotional service is free from any restrictions of time, place, or circumstances. One can perform devotional service anywhere, anytime, any place. So it is possible, but not so plausible.
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay, then see you all next week if Krishna so sanctions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhamma Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sanam, thank you.